All right, the search continues for a Texans head coach. We have news-ish, but we might be in kind of a dead spot-ish. Although there will still be rumblings and there will still be context clues because second interviews will likely be announced, and the teams that aren't currently in the playoffs, those candidates can still perform their second interviews. However, the Texans will not be able to interview anyone that's still in until a week from now at the earliest. So if you're looking for like a DeMeco Ryans second interview, can't happen until next Monday at the earliest. Same thing with the Eagles guys. So that's where we're at, and those appear to be the three guys. Sean Payton is doing his second interview with Denver. It seems kind of like Sean Payton might end up back on Fox, much to the dismay of anyone who enjoys watching good studio analysts, because he's not very good at that. But that's just kind of where we're at. We'll break it all down. It is the Locker Room here on YouTube. Subscribe, like. Been doing this for a few months and very much have enjoyed doing it, enjoying all the comments, enjoying all the love, and be sure to spread the love. Subscribe here, subscribe to the other podcast, the other digital forms of Texans content. But I do think this is the top one. We're in the Locker Room every week. We talk to the players, coaches. We are on the flagship station. We are the show of record in the loop 10 to 2 Monday through Friday, Sports Radio 610. And we have a really good grasp of what's going on with your Houston Texans, et cetera. So whether you're a Texans fan or not, subscribe, and we can ride along with this together. Coyote brings up right off the top, DeMeco is the new head coach, Landry Locker and John McClain. Don't know, although I do know that McClain was on, and he was in John McClain form. He insists that there are no front runners, which I think is absolutely silly. I think the two front runners right now, and Albert Breer had a report, the two front runners right now are DeMeco Ryans, the people's choice. And there's a lot of clues as to, why it could be DeMeco Ryans. You have the long interview. The betting odds have shifted in his favor. Hell, they took the Texans head coach betting odds off of DraftKings after the DeMeco Ryans interview. You have JJ Watt endorsing him, which I don't think is a small thing. I don't think JJ is going to put that out there if he doesn't have like some sort of idea that he wants the gig. And you have all this buzz. Breer brings up the past relationship with ownership. I think that matters. DeMeco Ryans started a foundation here his second year in the league. He and wifey got married here when he was a Philadelphia Eagle. So they have roots in Houston. And the job's appealing. Despite what people were saying early on, the job is appealing with all the assets. So I think he's right up there. I think the Eagles guys are right behind him. Sean Payton's out. I don't think Evero and Brown are in the mix as of right now, but they could be. And if the Texans go through this process and they like those two, I think that kind of speaks to, maybe how they blow stuff away. And Kafka, I really haven't heard much on Kafka. But I know that he interviewed yesterday, so I'm not going to pretend to know how that interview went. I do know that the Ryans interview went good. Both sides seem to enjoy it. Ryans canceled his interview with Arizona and Indianapolis. We still don't know unless something's happened in like the last hour or something, whether or not Indianapolis is even going to visit with DeMeco Ryans or Arizona. The Colts are weird because they've interviewed, it seems like damn near half the league. And they would have to wait a week like the Texans to talk to DeMeco, and it would be the first time. You got to think that Indianapolis is just going to go on with their process. So I don't think DeMeco will go to Indianapolis. I know I wouldn't go to Indianapolis. And the fact that those interviews were postponed, I think it's something. Arizona right now, they seem to be interested in Brian Flores, but They're also the only other team that is requesting Jonathan Gannon, which they'll have to wait till next Monday. But Monty Austinfort, also a New England guy, he's interested in talking to Jonathan Gannon. So Jonathan Gannon at least has someone else interested in him. And that's been kind of like the reservation about Jonathan Gannon is, well, why isn't anyone else interested in him? Well, there you go. Arizona Cardinals, Monty Austinfort, another Patriots guy is. That boy 555 asks, who's your top two candidates and what do you think are the Texans' top two candidates? I think the Texans' top two candidates are Gannon and DeMeco Ryans. I don't know how much they like Gannon. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure to hire DeMeco Ryans. And here's the thing. Someone brought this up today on the show, and he was absolutely right. Shout out to all the loopholes. If you listen to In the Loop, you are a loophole. Subscribe to the Odyssey app along with this channel. Someone asked or said, I don't know if he was being trite. I don't know if he was being smug, or I don't know if he was just asking a really solid question and making a good point. If DeMeco Ryans played for the Titans or another team, he wouldn't be as popular of a choice as he is right now. You're correct. I don't disagree with that. Now, would he still be on the list? I think so. A lot of teams have wanted to interview with DeMeco Ryans. Denver went up to talk to DeMeco Ryans. The Colts wanted to talk to DeMeco Ryans. The Cardinals wanted to talk to DeMeco Ryans. So you're absolutely correct. But, it's not like they're going to Atlanta or wherever the hell TJ Yates is and interviewing him for a head coaching job, and people are getting excited about it. DeMeco Ryans is a top candidate for a lot of reasons. You can lay out, the fact that he's not an offensive-minded coach. That seems to be the main source of any DeMeco Ryans reservations. But yeah, of course, the fact that he played here kind of adds to the excitement. It adds to the intrigue. It adds to the buzz. I don't dispute that at all, but let's not act like DeMeco Ryans isn't on at least everyone else's list. So 100%, that is correct. DeMeco Ryans is more popular because he did play here, which is good. And the other thing about it is, and I don't think it should be like, the main thing that you factor in, but I do think it should matter more here than other places because there's some apathy. There's some fan apathy. I'm at every game. I'm in the parking lot at every game, tailgating. And at the end of the game, I go in the locker room and talk to the players for the post-game show before I do the post-game show here, which if you haven't experienced that, it's one of the best things that we've done in the few months that we've started this stream. But there's a lot of apathy. There's empty seats. It's the most dead NFL environment that you will ever witness. So I do think that matters. I mean, maybe it's a tiebreaker, but here I think it matters a little bit more than, maybe it would somewhere else where the organizations have run, more smoothly. So I absolutely do think that you are correct if you feel that way. So that's true. L. Reed says, I believe if we are able to get DeMeco Ryans and Bryce Young, it'll be the most exciting for this franchise since drafting Watson. I agree. I think maybe just the DeMeco hiring would be right up there. The Bryce Young thing makes me nervous because it shouldn't be an if. It should be a win. It should be, when they get Bryce Young, everything's going to be great, but they screwed up that number one pick, which we'll see how costly it is. Who knows what Chicago's thinking, but, if they had the number one pick, we wouldn't have to be saying this if stuff. I mean, there's a chance that there's only one good quarterback, and there's a chance that Indianapolis jumps up and takes that spot. I do wonder, I don't think who they select depends on the head coach. I think Caserio is going to make that pick. So some people have asked, well, will they go defense if they? Nah, I don't. There's a chance they only like one quarterback that early, and then they just go Will Anderson. But I don't think that I don't think that who the coach is depends on where that pick is. I think Nick Caserio is still thought of highly enough to where the pick is going to be his pick, and the coach will adjust to it. Joe asks, Ryan, it says Ryans is HC, Greg Roman is OC. Are we sure Greg Roman is a good OC? I like him. I like what he did with Lamar Jackson. He basically, and I like what he did with Kaepernick in San Francisco. But are we sure that Greg Roman is good at being an OC? They just got rid of him in Baltimore. I mean, he made that offense for Lamar Jackson. I'm not completely trying to dismiss, what he's done, but are we sure he's great? I don't know. I hope they lean more towards, the Kubiak-ish pipeline. I heard McLean today, and this is what's getting out of control with, the talk of DeMeco. I do think we'll probably see some former players doing, more than they have in the past. Andre's already with the organization. I know people are saying, Andre do this. Andre's not a coach. The hours are different. That's not Andre. Now he didn't like the hours. I also don't think he liked the way stuff was going with Bill and Jack. And I know Jack, I saw a couple of times, and I've never even called Easterby on this, but Easterby told a couple people behind the scenes, just kind of tried to plant that Andre was a lazy coach. And trust me, I saw it. I saw the text, sir. But I think Andre's more of a front office guy, more of a I'm just Dre type of guy. But he's definitely with the organization. Speaking of Jack Easterby, I don't know if y'all heard this today. This was on the TOC Culture podcast. I think I actually have this here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Did you hear him compare himself to Martin Luther King? When asked how you maintain your confidence as a leader, let me play y'all this, because you can't really make this type of stuff up. Jack Easterby really compared himself to Martin Luther King. I think I have it here. Let me check on my thing.
How do you try to protect that confidence, in who you are and your competency to be able to continue to move forward?
Well, let me go back to, because you just said something really awesome. I don't want us to skip over here that I think is really, Martin Luther King is one of my heroes. I've read every biography or autobiography about him that I could find, because he is obviously was a faith leader who led with courage and dignity, and had multiple jobs, right? He was a minister.
He had multiple jobs. So Jack is comparing how he was walking around doing a lot of jobs to Martin Luther King. You can't really make this up. This is not out of context. So he's basically talking about how he had multiple jobs and had to deal with criticism. He's comparing himself to Martin Luther King. This really happened.
He was a civil rights leader. He did several things for his dad. And so I have always ascribed to not allow my job to be the premier identity in my life, but my faith and my family to be how I identify and or walk through life. And then whatever job we have, we do the best we can do with it. And I think I've been blessed to do good jobs everywhere I've been to make sure I'm making a difference in those people. But one thing he said that's really powerful is the opposite of, love isn't hate, right? It's indifference. And so,
by the way, that's not his quote either.
So you mentioned that earlier. I think, Nate, that is
and even then, what would it have to do with getting criticized for being a bad general man or bad front office guy, general manager, all that type of stuff? How is this even comparable to the valid criticism that Jack Easterby got compared to the type of hate that Martin Luther King got, even though it isn't really in Martin Luther King quote, which is a whole nother issue on itself.
Very big point that every listener needs to hear is somebody criticizing a call that you make in the fourth quarter, or potentially criticizing a move I made as an administrator. That's actually a dressed up form of love. And so again, love.
So was Martin Luther King criticism a dressed up form of love? This dude's a sicko, man. He's a legit sick F.
hate have different opposite, representations. But if they don't care, that's when it's dangerous, right? That apathy sets in. That's the one where you're trying to coach effort, or you're trying to coach care. It's really dangerous. And that's when, quite frankly, you're probably in the wrong spot or potentially need to repurpose a lot of different things. So I want everybody to hear that is that we live in an emotionally volatile world right now. People want headlines. They want news to be, click worthy and all those things. And so you can't go for that. You can't allow yourself to be prompted by that. But man, we sure, as a leader want to make sure that people care. And so there's an extreme to it is what I'm saying. But in the end, you want to be careful that you don't allow that extreme emotion to begin to make you want to tell people to care less, because if you do that, then you're really messed up.
Okay. Dude, God, TOC Culture Podcast, dude, man, this effing guy is wild, man. He is wild. But he addressed the Texans stuff. I actually have a video talking about it, and I have the link to the full vid. Man, he is a wild, sick dude. L. Reed, going back to Greg Roman, from Greg Roman to hell, Jack Houston about compare himself to a damn Roman. That's sick sociopath. Allegedly, POS, person of service. Roman lacks wide receiver focus. That's my only concern. I hear people say that, and I'm not like completely disputing it, but and look, I don't think Greg Roman should be OC. But the one thing that I would say is I don't know if he's not wide receiver focused or if he didn't have wide receiver talent. That's the one thing I would ask. Tyler Olson says Ryans as head coach, Clint Kubiak is OC. Is Clint good? I know people like Kubiak, but is Clint good? That would be my question to you. Is he good? I don't know. I really don't know. Gridiron's talking about POS, person of service. It's a play on words. I mean the same POS. Too. JRG asks, why are we still talking about Easterby? I mean, I don't know, because you did an interview talking about the Texans, and I got a lot of time, a lot of content to fill. Sorry, sir. I'll cover the search in depth. I'll cover everything in depth. But yeah, when he talks, I'll talk about him. Sorry if that triggers you, sir. Captain Stu said it's so Texans and Cal McNor that this sick creep was able to have this much. It's bad. It's really, really bad that he was able to, but that's where we're at. So again, the timeline, next Monday is when the presser can be, or the second interviews can go down. DeMeco has momentum, and we could likely hear, as far as reports and stuff, like someone will report it, and then 25 reporters will jump on it and say, according to sources, this. But we can probably hear like the announcement of the second interviews or when they're scheduled. And maybe that will allow us to cross down the list. But right now, the list, I would say, is down to 6. I think Sean Payton's out, although he's interviewing in Denver a second time. The one thing I will say that I think is a possibility, I think it's something to keep an eye on when it comes to Sean Payton, is that Jerry Jones canceled his interview and his weekly hit with 105.3 The Fan tomorrow, and Stephen Jones canceled his today. So they're always willing to talk no matter how bad things are. So maybe, and I'm not saying this is 100% a thing, but maybe some news could drop tomorrow and they just don't want to talk about Mike McCarthy until the news drops. So I would keep an eye on that. And if the Cowboys job opens up, one of two things I believe happens. Number one, the Sean Payton rumors begin full circle. And I think in their situation, it might actually make sense. They have a late first-round pick, and quite frankly, they draft well. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that. They draft their asses off. Will McClay, Houston native, drafts his ass off. So, losing a first-round pick might not be as costly, and it's a late first. So I could see Sean Payton going there. The other thing is if Sean Payton decides he doesn't want to coach, there's rumblings that Dan Quinn could end up in Denver because he has the ties with Russell Wilson. I know Russell Wilson's cool with him from his days in Seattle. He deserves probably another crack as a head coach, and he's done a really good job as a defensive coach. The problem is that the Cowboys losing Dan Quinn would be a pretty big blow. And you remember when Dan Quinn and the Atlanta Falcons went to the Super Bowl? I said at the time, and this was when I was on with the morning guys, Meltzer and Seth, I said I would have fired Dan Quinn just to keep Kyle Shanahan. Because that was when Shanahan was the OC and Matt Ryan was the MVP. Well, they lost Shanahan and everything just kind of unraveled. Because Shanahan was the straw that stirred the drink there. I think that's kind of what Dan Quinn is for the Cowboys. I know the offense played pretty good this year, but I don't know what their defense looks like without Dan Quinn. So could the Cowboys, if they do fire McCarthy, and they might bring him back, I think it's a waste of time. I don't think you're going to get that far with where things are right now. And your real goal is that you get a better Dak Prescott. You might not, but it's worth a roll of the dice. But the point is, Sean Payton, if the Cowboys fire Mike McCarthy, then that's where Sean Payton goes, and then you could have the Dan Quinn stuff going down. And look, winning a playoff game, we saw Mike Mularkey get fired here before the Titans hired Vrabel. So, I mean, sometimes just winning a playoff game is not that much. You got to look past just the overall results. Monkey Chalupa. Good Lord, that's a crazy name. If Texans hire Ryans, you think he will be able to sway some 49er free agents over to H-Town? I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure that he can bring in some of those guys. I mean, San Francisco's not going to be able to keep all of them. Now, they do develop them. They lose them and then develop them. But, I mean, I would think free agency, we've gotten kind of used to the last couple of years. God, some weak-ass free agency, if we're being honest. Just some complete cheesy 1-year, 2-year contracts. And really no excitement. It almost kind of sucked, free agency. You're signing, these guys on 1-year deals that their previous team didn't want them, didn't have a lot of money to work with. There was no excitement, no intrigue about being here. But I think free agency is going to be a little more important. And I do wonder, what is it going to look like with Nick Caserio? Is Nick Caserio now, is the mindset going to change? Is the philosophy going to change? Are we going to have, more aggressiveness? That's one of the things that I'm most excited about is, because we're learning about Nick, what does free agency look like for Nick Caserio when he's in this situation as opposed to the previous one? I mean, hopefully better. Hopefully we're not, signing Rex Burkhead to 1-year deals and, giving Reeves Maben whatever he got and, kicking like Mark Ingram's your most exciting get. Although there have been some decent ones. Malik Collins, I think they did a good job with Desmond King. There have been some decent ones, but for the most part, it's just been kind of a blah process. And the churning's been kind of crappy too, where you're keeping guys that you probably shouldn't keep. It's not like a true churn. So we'll see. Sean asks, he says, Adam Kaplan said Sunday that DeMeco has assembled a pretty good staff from what he's told. That's always the funniest thing to me is we often like assume, and I won't say we, like some kind of assume that like, a coach gets hired, then all of a sudden he's got to figure out, who he's going to hire on his staff. If you're DeMeco Ryans and you were close-ish last year to getting a job, you're going to already know who you're going to hire for your staff. And that's typically part of the interview process is they bring you in, you have like the awkward small talk back and forth. You talk about what y'all do in San Francisco. You talk about the philosophy. Maybe they try to ask you about, any reservations, any questions. And then you'll get into staffing. You'll get into, well, who do you like in the draft? Who would you take if you were here? What do you think about our roster? What do you think about, the way that Jalen Petrie is used? What do you think about, Christian Harris? What do you think about the number 48? And then the coaches that do a good job in interviews. And the funniest thing to me that's kind of happened, and it hadn't been happening the last couple of years, but when someone says something like, well, he didn't interview well, I mean, there's been like a notion that, oh, well, what do you mean he didn't interview well? That's what it means. Like if you go into an interview and you just basically just say, all right, here I am, you've got to prove that, they're still good on defense and you have something to do with it. Like, because Robert Saleh had a good defense and he left, and DeMeco has held the fort down. So if DeMeco doesn't come in there and he doesn't come across as someone who like knows what he's doing and knows all of his players and can break down, what we were thinking, what was the game plan here, or how did y'all do this? And he doesn't know who his staff's going to be, and he has no idea what the roster looks like and stuff, then that's where you'll hear like the interview didn't go well. But I'm assuming DeMeco Ryans, he wants this. He's wanted this for a long time. People have talked about him being a head coach. When you hear all these reports, and I've heard the same stuff y'all have heard, that DeMeco Ryans had a good interview and it was good on both sides and it was long. That's why. Those are the type of discussions they have. Like they don't just, they don't hire you and then all of a sudden DeMeco goes, oh damn, I got to go hire a staff. Nah, I'm sure they have a pretty good idea. There's input. And then the coach also asks the ownership and GM questions. DeMeco Ryans, he brings up, y'all's reputation among some national media types and stuff like that. Not good. What's up with this dynamic? What about the one and done stuff? Why have you had, one and done coaches? What's up with Davis Mills, et cetera? Like, that's just kind of how these interviews go. Like Mike Kafka yesterday, I can promise you, I can 100% promise you, one of the questions that was asked to Mike Kafka, the Giants offensive coordinator, is, what was the key to turning around Daniel Jones? And then, they talked about philosophy, and then it gets brought up. I'm not sitting here saying that, this is something that we should be rooting for, but I'm sure they asked, what do you think about Davis Mills? And they played him this year. What do you think about Davis Mills? Do you think Davis Mills can be saved? What kind of quarterback do you think Davis Mills is? How does Davis Mills fit into your system? How does Dameon Pierce fit in what you like to do with running the ball? That's just kind of how the whole thing goes. So I say all that to say that the contracts are the coaching staffs and all that. If you're worth a damn, then they have an idea of who's going to be on their staff. Coyote says, who do we need to contact to have the mics fixed for the press conference? We can't hear the questions. Man, you're not the only person who says that. So sometimes the mics work in post game. And then sometimes, like during the season, they don't work as well. But at the Caserio press conference, where I asked a question about him saying that he was gonna, I don't know, like everything would be cool if he left. I think the mic was just going in and out, but we actually had a mic. I can ask him about that next time we're there, and I'm sure they can kind of figure it out. But sometimes, you're just in a setting, and sometimes the mic's a little bit more timely, especially during the week with practice. But I can assure you, and I can guarantee you that when they introduce the head coach, the mics will be on, because that's where like the national media is carrying it. So there will probably be mics. But yeah, that's just one of those things that I'll ask him. If Gannon gets the job, we just look more incompetent and dysfunctional, because we could have hired him last year and not have to go through what we did this offseason. My thing is this. I do think there will be some displeasure if Jonathan Gannon is the guy. But I've never in my life witnessed more displeasure over a coaching hire than I did when Nick Sirianni was hired in Philadelphia. And I wonder, like, if we go back to what people were saying 2 years ago when Nick Sirianni was hired, and there are a lot of people from Philadelphia saying it, if we go back to that, and then today, let's say today, if we had a head coach draft and we took all 32 coaches in the NFL and all the assistants and we put them out there like in a huge draft pool, and each team, they had a 1-round 32 team draft for head coach. When does Nick Sirianni go now? Top 5? I mean, people in Indianapolis swore by him. They said that he was really involved with the game plan. He was kind of a guy that helps straw that stirred the drink, that type of thing. Just incredible, smart, culture type of guy. Like, when does Nick Sirianni go? Seriously, just put on the comments. Like, when would you, like, on your board, if you're making a big board of head coaches everywhere, where does Nick Sirianni go? I mean, Howie Roseman deserves a lot of credit. They're stacked. They're absolutely stacked. So, it's not like even with the Giants where Brian Dable and Mike Kafka were able to maximize what they had with Daniel Jones, and somehow they got to the playoffs. I know they got their ass kicked. They got their ass kicked by guys that were better. That was just as much about Jimmys and Joes as X's and O's. That was just as much about the players. But when does Nick Sirianni go? Because he was a joke when he was hired. He was a joke. Go back and look up. Matter of fact, just type in Bieniemy and Nick Sirianni and go see what they were saying in Philly. It's one of my favorite Twitter searches. Just do it. Just scroll down it. You'll laugh your ass off. Because you'll see a bunch of Eagles fans and it's, man, this guy sucks. How did we hire this guy? How did we hire this idiot? So I wouldn't say that hiring Jonathan Gannon makes you look incompetent. I think they're performing the search the way you want the search to be performed. Last year was a lot different of a situation. We don't need to go through it. It was a different situation. Hell, does any first-time head coach want to go to a podium and the first thing he has to talk about is his quarterback putting wieners on massage therapists allegedly? I mean, I know I'm being trite, but seriously. And you don't know if you can trade that guy. You're going to have $75 million in dead cap. Like, it's a different search. And if they go through this point of the search and they like Jonathan Gannon, I don't think that's incompetent and dysfunctional. I think that means that they just like Jonathan Gannon. Now, why was he not hired last year? I don't know. The entire process was weird last year for some reasons that they couldn't control and other reasons that they could control. It's a joke that they didn't fire David Culley till the Thursday after the final game of the season. It's a joke they sent him up to the podium on Monday. It's a joke to many that the McCown thing happened. Although I think he would have been better than Lovey for the long term. But the other thing is this, like, if you get Jonathan Gannon now instead of last year, and let's say he's the right guy. Let's say Jonathan Gannon is the next Nick Sirianni. Let's say that Jonathan Gannon is the next Nick Sirianni. And let's say that Jonathan Gannon is is the dude. Can you make a case that with where you are right now, not with what happened last year and last year sucked, but with where you are right now, damn, especially if you'd have gotten that number 1 pick, but with where you are, can you make a case that it would actually be better that you hired him now instead of last season, to where he didn't have to go through that $75 million in dead cap, and he probably would have had a better record than Lovie Smith? But if Jonathan Gannon's the right guy and they hire him now, you can make a case that based on where they're at, not necessarily the road in which they got here, but with where they're at, with what they have moving forward from an asset standpoint, and the fact that Jonathan Gannon, the fan base is not already soured on him, you can make a case that would be the right hire. That's assuming that he's the right guy. That's a hell of an assumption, and we're leaping up there. So I don't think that there's any like dysfunction in hiring Jonathan Gannon. Would there be some disappointment? Sure. I mean, I would be disappointed if DeMeco Ryans wasn't the guy at this point. I think a lot of Texans fans would be disappointed. I think they'd be pissed. And that's the consequence of the Texans' own wrongdoing. You don't get the benefit of the doubt. Hell, Philadelphia won a Super Bowl a few years before they hired Nick Sirianni. They still didn't get the benefit of the doubt. Texans damn sure don't deserve it. I mean, they made Jack Easterby a front office guy. A straight up either like alleged deranged sociopath. One of the biggest liars I've ever been around. Nobody has anything good to say about him. They made King Bill. You know, so they're not going to get the benefit of the doubt when it comes to that. But I do think that, you know, the last 15 days, the search that we've seen, I think the Texans have performed a good search. And if it ends up on Jonathan Gannon, I don't blame you for feeling how you feel. I don't blame you for giving them the smoke. But I do not think it would be an incompetent, dysfunctional thing. I think it would truly be them thinking that they're hiring the right guy and giving DeMeco Ryans and others every chance to win the gig. So I disagree with that. And hell, Doug Peterson wasn't the popular pick in Jacksonville. They wanted Byron Leftwich. I mean, they had Trent Baalke clown logos, and a lot of them still have that. Trent Baalke had a hell of an offseason. I mean, people wanted him gone last year in Jacksonville. Now, I still think he should have taken Aiden Hutchinson over Walker. Can you imagine what Jacksonville would look like if they'd taken Hutchinson instead of Walker? Yikes. But the offseason that they put together, specifically with the pass catchers, 3 guys that had career years, and we did not think that was like a pass-catching heavy field. They did a hell of a job there. So no, I don't think it would be a dysfunctional, incompetent look to hire Jonathan Gannon. I do think that any negativity that the Texans get, I think they've earned. I think they know that. I've talked to Cal and Hannah about those types of things and people there. They know that. But I would not be sitting here saying this is incompetence if they hired Jonathan Gannon. Would I be disappointed like you? Yes, but I do not think it would be incompetent. It is the Locker Room. If you're just coming in, subscribe, like, number 1 source for Texans digital content. Another source of Texans digital content. And I say spread the love. Shout out to Cody Stooch. Shout out to 713 Sports. Shout out to Brown Chubby Bear doing what he does. Texans fan Battlecast. He had Matt Schaub on, and he said that Schaub actually said he was open to a coaching position as a backup QB for years. I bet it would be a great coach. Being a backup quarterback, especially when you're Josh McCown or, you know, Matt Schaub, I think it is kind of coaching experience. It is essentially an extra quarterback coach because if you look on TV, like when the starting quarterback comes off the field, who's the first guy he goes to? He's usually sitting on a bench like this. To his left is the quarterback coach or the OC, if the OC is a sideline guy. To his right, it's the backup quarterback. And if that backup quarterback is a veteran, like a Chase Daniel or like a McCown, a lot of times that's the main guy he's talking to. And they're looking at the sheets. Now they're looking at the iPad. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Schaub's going to be a good coach or not. Hell, everybody seems to want to bring back a lot of former Texans. Brown Chubby Bear, put down the podcast so that people know what's up. I'm a big fan of Brown Chubby Bear's passion. I think he should highlight his opinions more. That dude's got some freaking fire. I don't know when he sleeps. Every time I look, he's arguing about the Texans, carrying the water for the Texans, which is something I can get down with. So check him out. Sometimes he lets his passion get the best of him, though. You know, I got to bring it up, Chubby. Kicked off Texans Reddit. Don't know what he did. I think he was just arguing. But it happens. It happens. Tony Bear, another Bear. What's up with Trey Wingo? Really talking down on the Texans. The guy was on 610 today and really brought the mood down. What does he do now? Doesn't he have like that website? What does Trey Wingo do? Let me look this up. Look. Let's see. Trey Wingo. Trey Wingo. I don't even follow him anymore. He has a YouTube channel. Oh, Wingo present. Oh, he's got a good YouTube channel. Okay, I didn't even know this. But yeah, Trey Wingo. Look, the media guys, like national media guys, a lot of them have valid criticism of the Texans. A lot of them, that's just the default, is to criticize the Texans and what's going on, and a lot of it's been earned. I do think if you look at like the Trey Wingos and stuff like that, I don't know exactly what Trey Wingo's saying. Like, is he telling DeMeco Ryans he shouldn't take the gig? If you're going to do that, like, just here's what you need to say if you're going to do that. This is the thing. Let me get a drink of water for this. If you're going to criticize the Texans, and God knows I do, good Lord, I do. Here's what you got to say. If you're going to criticize, just say you don't think Cal McNair is a good owner. You don't think he's going to be a good owner. You don't think you can win with that type of ownership. I'm not saying whether that's true or not. I'm just saying, like, if you're going to criticize it and that's your cause for concern, you can say, well, Cal McNair, for whatever reason, trusted Bill O'Brien. He trusted Jack Easterby. He doesn't know what he's doing, and I don't think they're going to get the job done. If you say that, okay. Like, I like Cal. I like Hannah a lot. I like them. But if that's your criticism, okay. They really haven't proven themselves yet. Now, they're functioning like a good organization with this search, and it's much different than the last 2 years. But if you want to say that, then okay, I can understand. But if you're going to use Lovie Smith and David Culley as examples of why a head coach shouldn't take this gig, then you're just talking out of your ass. Because we've laid out why it wasn't an appealing job, and no one else was going to hire Lovie Smith or David Culley. Now, is that a good look for the Texans? Hell no. That's why you could criticize. The reason that it got to that point, in large part, was because of what happened on Cal McNair's watch. So that's why you could criticize that. And you're going to say that. But let's not act like Lovie Smith and David Culley just got wrong. They benefited from the dysfunction of the organization. They got opportunities that they weren't going to get anywhere else. Lovie Smith was coaching his third team in the NFL. He coached nearly, what are we at? 9% of the teams in the league. Now, was it set up for success? I don't know. Like, you can say it wasn't set up for success. You think if Lovie Smith wins 7 games that they're looking for a new coach right now? No, they're not. But they got worse. And David Culley was a disaster. And Lovie Smith performed at a lower level than David Culley. If they won 7 games, then we wouldn't be having this conversation. They didn't know. And yes, they got through the mud. So now the job's more appealing and they're trying to find the long-term guy. It's similar to San Francisco, although it's a different general manager. But you know what? The general manager here, he came into the mud. He didn't create the mud. Now, has he helped it as much as he could? That's another thing that you could talk about criticizing the Texans. But just don't use Lovie Smith and David Culley as an example. You can say, on Cal McNair's watch, they haven't functioned well, and there's reservations. There should be reservations. There should be healthy reservations. But that's just where it's at right now. With that, the national media is going to go that way, and I can't blame them in some point, but I do think there's got to be like a logical path of thinking when they're having those types of things. Boss Hog KPO says you smoke and McCown isn't qualified. Isn't qualified for what? And I don't know what qualified means. I've talked about this with head coaching past. Now, the guys that they're interviewing have good resumes, but there's no exact science to hiring coaches. So what exactly is Josh McCown not qualified to do? You're saying he's not qualified to be a head coach? Yeah, when it comes to traditional experience, he's not qualified to be a head coach. The closest comparison to him was Frank Reich and Mike Vrabel, and both of those guys coached in the league for a while. But you don't think he's qualified to be a quarterback coach or OC? Well, then why did Doug Peterson offer him the OC job in Philadelphia? Why did he let him call plays there for a little bit, like in the preseason? Why did Hugh Jackson sit 2 feet from me in Cleveland and tell me that he believed Josh McCown was going to be a future head coach? Why did guys that play with Josh McCown that I talked to say that Josh McCown was going to be a future head coach? So I don't know, like, what he's not qualified to do what? Head coach in the NFL? Yeah, traditional qualifications, you're right. But you know what? There's been some bad qualified coaches that have ended up being pretty good. But if you don't think he's qualified to be a head coach, that the interviews ruined Josh's. I don't know, they ruined his career, but I mean, they didn't do him any favors. I don't know what qualified means. With McCown, I was intrigued by it. I thought it would have been interesting, especially in the situation they were in. But yeah, I don't really. I don't know what you're saying. He's not qualified to do. Brown Chubby Bear, it's the Texans Fan Battle podcast. So there you go. Jeremy C says Lovie Smith had it made. He was able to secure the number 1 pick for his beloved Bears. Nobody else gave him that opportunity. Yeah, and look, I said this when they lost the number 1 pick. I don't blame Lovie Smith for going out there and winning. It was his final game. He should have done it. And that was a consequence of the Texans not having a coach in place that they felt good about long term. So that was kind of a consequence. Now, Brandon Cook shouldn't have been out there, and he should have been traded. That's like when people say, what are you supposed to do? Well, not have your best player out there trying to win and really trying to screw you. You really gave him a chance to screw you. So that's what I would say. Vince Mark says we're still paying people that's not in our building anymore, and we're paying them lots of money. So don't say Nick didn't put us in a bigger hold that we already was. What does that got to do with anything? That doesn't even make sense. Like, what are you saying, Vincent? Like, elaborate on that, please. I'm not trying to pick on you. The floor is yours. We're still paying people that's not in our building anymore, and we're paying them a lot of money. So don't say Nick didn't put us in a bigger hold that we already was. Okay. There's no coaching salary cap, so it doesn't go against the salary cap. I assume you're talking about Lovie Smith and David Culley. There's an operating budget, so Cal McNair doesn't have to go in like his own personal bank account and pay these guys. You can make a case that winning less is actually better than winning more with where they're at right now. You actually get rewarded for it. So explain that to me, sir. We're still paying people that's not in our building anymore, and we're paying them a lot of money. So don't say Nick didn't put us in a bigger hold than we already was. Oh, explain it. How is paying David Culley and paying Lovie Smith, how is that impacting where they are right now as far as a whole? Because to me, a whole means your quarterback wants out. He wanted out before Nick got here. You have $75 million in cap space, dead cap. That's gone. You didn't have any draft assets. Nick actually did a good job. And I'm defending Nick. I don't think Nick's the end all be all. Nick actually did a good job of holding off on the Watson trade more so. So you have the assets. You're paying two guys who it has nothing to do with you. It doesn't touch anything. They're not spending any less money because Lovie Smith and David Culley are there. So explain that to me, Vincent. I'd love to hear it. Come on, like, let's go. Like, help me out. And I think Nick should be proactively evaluated. So what's the bigger hole? Tell me, what's the hole? Oh, wait. We're paying people that aren't here. Who cares? And it's not my money. Sometimes you roll your eyes because the reason that you care about what players are getting paid is because a salary cap is a puzzle. A salary cap is a puzzle where, you know, if this person takes up this much of the pie, then it means that you have less pie to work with. Paying coaches, if the owner's willing to do that and he's still willing to pay top price for the next coach, explain that to me. That's what I thought. Doesn't even make sense. JRG said, I think Cooks gets us a third. If he does, good job. I heard that they could have got a second for him. I might have heard wrong. The guy who told me, though, I would, if a gun was to my head, like anything he tells me about the Cowboys, I would say it, and I would at least believe that I was going to live. He was the one who told me Romo was going to go into broadcasting a month or so before. He was the one who's given me, like, who they're going to select. Showed that off to Pendergast this year. By the way, they did a good job taking Tyler Smith. He seems like he's going to be a good offensive lineman. We got Kenyon Green. Yeah. Not to be a jerk, but it does seem like they got the better offensive lineman, a guy that played really good at guard and played really good at left tackle out of Tulsa that people had question marks on. I told Sean, I said, yeah, they're going to take Tyler Smith. He said, what? Who the hell's that? I said, I don't really know, to be honest with you. They took him. He was a good guard, good tackle. They draft their ass off. But I heard you could have got a second. If you get a third, then I think you deserve a lot of credit there. Cody says, geez, Landry, Ted DiBiase, Locker beating up Vincent. I'm just asking the question, man. I'm just asking the question to my man, Vincent. Oh, he thought head coaches affect the salary cap. No, Vince, they don't. Appreciate you for being here, though, man. All love, you know, how he rolled. But no, head coaches don't affect the salary cap. Monkey Chalupa has a plan, and he has a Miller Lite. Very quality domestic beer, if you ask me. I am a Miller Lite fan when it comes to the domestic game. Monkey Chalupa says 1, hire Ryans, 2, sign Tunsil, 3, free agent splash with a little emoji, and Kareem Hunt. Okay, don't know if that's going to happen. 4, draft Young or one of those studs in defensive end, and then trade Cooks after a restructure deal. I don't know if he's going to want to restructure that deal. We'll see. We'll see. If he restructures that deal, it could make, you know, it could help. I just don't know that he's going to restructure. Someone asked me about Tony Pollard. I said I would overpay Tony Pollard, Cowboys running back, because A, they can, because they have all this salary cap space. B, that he doesn't have, you know, much wear and tear. He also is one of the best running backs in the league when he starts. And also, I think Dameon Pierce needs to be 1A or 1B as far as running back. Yesterday, Tony Pollard broke his damn fibula. And people are asking me, do you still want to pay him top dollar and overpay him? What the hell do you think? I mean, what? Come on. Like, I'm sitting here. I want the guy because he's a good player. He doesn't have a lot of wear and tear, and he broke his damn fibula, and you're asking me, well, you still want to pay him? Like, it's like some sort of I gotcha. Of course not. I mean, no. Now, there's still a lot of good running backs out there that I think you can kick the tires on, and I love the running backs in the draft. Bijan Robinson's getting a lot of mentions right now. They're talking about Buffalo trading up for him. Buffalo needs a running back. They get a Bijan Robinson. They also need to get a lactose intolerant Josh Allen. You hear what he was doing? He already had the alcohol and the speech plan for when they won the Super Bowl, if they won it. Joe Burrow came in there with that swag and just kind of smacked him around. But I like the running backs. But yeah, no, obviously Tony Pollard breaks his fibula. Yeah, or tears or whatever it was. He had a serious injury. Yeah, of course. That kind of changes the plans. No doubt. G-Rob talking about Cooks. I guess Cooks was auditioning for other teams in that final game. Does Dallas wish they made that trade while they were playing San Francisco? Yeah, I mean, they're talking about receiver up there for sure. Look, they let Amari Cooper walk, and they missed him. They missed him a lot. So yeah, I don't necessarily think that you know, I don't know what they're saying about Cooks. They do need a receiver though. And Cooks was someone that, you know, they could have had, or maybe they tried to get him. It just depends who you listen to. But yeah, for sure. I think Cooks is one of the names that we're going to mention. Sound of silence. Much love to everyone. No doubt. BDS is reporting that there is a mystery coaching candidate. Have you heard anything? BDS. Maybe this is just slipping my mind. BDS is reporting there's a mystery coaching candidate. Have you heard anything? Tell me who BDS is down there. I'm probably going to feel stupid when I read it, but tell me who BDS is. CP, Jalen Carter. Good player, for sure. Is DeMeco a great coordinator or a product of having great players? I like this question, Drew. And look, I can't really answer it. It could be both. Great coordinators can definitely benefit from great players. Now, is DeMeco as player dependent as Lovie Smith is? Because I think Lovie Smith is a guy who just needs great players for his defense to work. I think it's very vanilla. Despite the fact when they blitzed, it was effective. He was hesitant to blitz. Despite the fact Stingley was a man corner, he didn't run as much man until he got hurt, which was crazy. But I mean, it's a fair question. Is he a product of having great players? Probably. Now, can he get the most out of players? Maybe so. But, you know, that's always, you know, that's the question that we'll be asking. Like, if you look at the top three candidates right now that the Texans have, I believe the two Eagles coordinators and DeMeco Ryans, they both have great players. You know, all three of them have great players. So, you know, that's really just kind of the balance you're going to have to do. But for sure, San Francisco has some dogs there. Like Nick Bosa was a badass before he got there. So, yeah, I'm with you. Love H-Town wants Steichen. I'm hearing a lot of Steichen love from some people. GROB, can we please double dip at the center position? I hope we never have to experience what we did this year at center ever again. That was stupid. Like that Nick Caserio, I just defended Nick Caserio. This is the one thing I will say. Shout out to my guy Vincent. You're the man. And look, anytime you want to take me to task, man. You know me. I'm just this is how I talk. Like this is how we talk. It's all good. Like whatever. Why the F was Justin Britt back on the team this year? That's the one thing that I do think that Nick Caserio made a big mistake on is you're trying to churn the roster. You're bringing in these like 1-year vets, and then these guys who kind of show that they can't play and they have bad seasons, you bring them back for the next year for what? Like Justin Britt, like if you listen to my show In the Loop, Sports Radio 610, 10 to 2, the show of record in town. If you listen to that, first of all, we didn't understand why Justin Britt was back. He sucked last year. And it was even weirder because I think Caserio said something like he was one of our best players. No, he wasn't. He sucked. And then they brought him back this year, and during minicamp, During minicamp all the way up to training camp, I was comparing the way that he was moving to Matt Khalil. You remember the Matt Khalil experience before they overpaid for Laramie Tunsil on the trade? I hate to say it, but they overpaid because they were so desperate. You remember when they tried to make Matt Khalil their starting left tackle, and it was just a disaster? And he was walking, like it was painful to watch Matt Khalil walk. Like you could hear his knees pop from 100 yards down the field. It was rough. It was the same thing with Justin Britt. I mean, there were plays where they were running. They weren't even doing contact. They were doing a walkthrough, and Justin Britt would fall on the ground and be holding his knee and have to leave and all that type of stuff. Like he wasn't good, and you brought him back, and it didn't work out. Same thing with Farrell Brown. Farrell Brown couldn't stay in his 3-point stance in 2021. They brought him back in 2022. It didn't work out. Rex Burkhead, he had that one game against the Chargers. You didn't think Rex Burkhead was good enough to be someone that could contribute to an NFL team consistently. They brought him back. Kamu Grugier-Hill, he was okay. I mean, there were definitely some limitations in coverage, but Kamu Grugier-Hill, you watched him for a year, you brought him back. Christian Kirksey, God bless him, leader in the locker room. You brought him back. Like some of these one-year evaluations that Caserio had were weird. Now, I don't know if there's like some sort of romantic factor to it where they're like culture guys or whatever, but he did that quite often. And that was frustrating, to say the very least. So I would say that is kind of my frustration there. DRD says in his mocks, he has us taking 2 running backs. Thank you. I am very pro running back. Give me as many running backs as possible. They make immediate impacts. So I'm good with that. DL says DeMeco has shown to be very flexible and adaptable. Yes, for sure. Chris, why do we never have a competition for long snapper? Oh, you're going to hell for this one, Chris. You watch your mouth when you're saying this about my guy Weeks. John Weeks is getting old. We should draft a long snapper at number 2 so we can have competition. They do it. Look, the special teams was top of the league on Goose Goslin's list in Dallas. They were top 4 in DVOA. John Weeks is still elite. I know he doesn't look the part. They tried to bring in some weasel Instagram model type to compete with him 3 years ago, and John Weeks kicked his ass. So you be careful when you talk about John Weeks, Chris. John Weeks is playing until he's 60. He's going to play longer than Tom Brady. Leave John Weeks alone. Talk about anyone else on the team. Leave John Weeks alone. Also, friend of the show. Good dude. Actually gave us one of his extra grills to give away at a station event. So I'm a big Weeks guy. And also, he's good. Don't try to get rid of John Weeks. Let's focus on the coach and draft. I'm trying to get rid of my damn long snapper. Goodness gracious. Oh, I think I got punked. Chris is saying, can't believe you read that. Yes, I did. Maybe it's just getting too late. Did the Texans ever recoup the signing bonus from the Watson extension for the contract he never played under? No, you don't get to recoup that. And he redid his deal. So, no, you don't. They didn't get to do that. So I got trolled by Chris. You're a jerk, Chris. Lovely daughter there, though, if that's your daughter or whatever. So that's where we're at. To put a bow on it, 6 candidates left. Cannot have second interviews till a week from today at the earliest. DeMeco Ryans appears to be the front runner. Jonathan Gannon, according to Albert Breer, is a strong candidate. And then your guess is as good as mine. I don't know who BDS is talking about the report of a mystery candidate. I don't think there's going to be a mystery candidate. I think this is it. I think this is who they're deciding amongst. And I don't think Indianapolis is in the mix for DeMeco anymore, but you never know. It seems to me like that would be a waste of time for many reasons. Specifically, they've talked to about 1 trillion guys. So that's what we got. We'll keep it going. I'll talk to y'all tomorrow. We'll get more into what's going on with the search. We'll get into some other stuff, some other angles to look at. Hell, maybe we'll have some Sean Payton news and there'll be like a snowball effect. And I always like to localize it because, again, this is a Texans channel. Localized content. That's what we got. We need more Texans digital content. Subscribe, like. Cody Stutes was in here. Subscribe to his. It's a really good one too, and I think he's pushing 1,000. Let's try to get Cody Stutes up to 1,000. You won't regret it. I would say one of the top 3 Texans opinions that you can get in town. So hop in on that. Enjoy the offseason. We got a hell of a lot going on. I can't believe it's only been 15 days since this search has gone on. My sanity level in the last 15 days, while still not where you would want it to be, because I am insane to many. It's at least gotten better because of the things they've been doing and the way they've been functioning like a normal organization. So no matter what happens, though, just remember, whether it's DeMeco, whether it's Gannon, whether it's Steichen, whether it's Kafka, whether it's Brown, whether it's Evero, or the mystery candidate that someone brought up, we are all in this together. Subscribe, like, spread the love. Appreciate you. Shout out to everyone for hopping in. Thanks for getting in. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.